Most people will move through March 24th, 2026 like it's just another ordinary day. Something to pass through rather than something to truly experience or pay attention to. Something that quietly blends into every other date on the calendar without leaving a clear mark or a memorable imprint. They'll wake up at the usual time, reach for their phones almost automatically, scroll through the same familiar apps, consume the same types of content, and follow routines that feel so normal they no longer question them. They'll move through conversations without fully listening, respond out of habit rather than awareness, and go to sleep believing nothing significant happened. Nothing meaningful shifted, nothing worth remembering took place. And on the surface, they won't be wrong. There won't be a dramatic event, no obvious breakthrough, no loud signal demanding their attention or forcing them to pause. Nothing will interrupt their day in a way that feels undeniable. But what makes today different is exactly that. It doesn't try to stand out. It doesn't need to demand attention to have meaning, because the most important shifts don't always arrive with noise, urgency, or visible change. Sometimes they arrive quietly, in moments that look completely normal, almost forgettable, but carry more weight than anyone realizes at the time. Moments that seem small while you're in them, but later reveal themselves as the beginning of something much bigger. Today doesn't look like a turning point. It doesn't feel like a major shift, and it doesn't present itself as an opportunity you can clearly recognize or confidently define. There's no clear beginning, no obvious ending, no single moment that stands out and says, "This is where everything changes." There's no announcement, no clear sign, no external confirmation that something important is happening. And that's exactly why most people will miss it. Because the energy surrounding today isn't about visible change, it's about invisible decisions. The kind of decisions you don't consciously sit down to make. The kind that happen in seconds, often without you even realizing you had a choice in the first place. The kind that feel automatic, almost insignificant, like they don't carry enough weight to deserve your attention. But those are the exact moments that define direction. Not in a dramatic or immediate way, not all at once, but slowly, consistently, and with more precision than you might expect. They stack on top of each other, building something over time, shaping your path in ways that only become clear when you look back. There's a very specific kind of internal pressure present today, but it won't feel like pressure in the way you're used to. It won't feel stressful, urgent, or overwhelming, and it won't push you into action with force. Instead, it shows up quietly, almost subtly, in the background of your thoughts, your reactions, and your everyday behavior. It appears in small choices, subtle reactions, and brief moments where you have the option to act differently, but only if you're aware enough to notice that option exists. It's the moment where you almost say something, then pause, sensing there's a better response but not fully committing to it. The second, where you consider doing something you've been putting off, sending that message, starting that task, making that decision, but hesitate and tell yourself you'll get to it later. The situation where you feel a familiar pattern starting to repeat, something you've done many times before, but this time you recognize it just before it fully happens. These moments are incredibly easy to overlook because they don't seem important. They don't feel like decisions. They feel like habits, like natural reactions, like things that just happen. But today, those habits are being highlighted in a way that's harder to ignore, as if something is quietly holding them up for you to see more clearly than usual. Because this isn't about one big decision that changes everything instantly, and it's not about one powerful moment that suddenly shifts your entire life. It's about a series of small decisions that, when repeated over time, begin to shape who you're becoming. It's about the accumulation of choices, the pattern of behavior that slowly forms your direction without you needing to consciously design it. How you respond when something irritates you. Do you react automatically, letting emotion take control, or do you pause, even briefly, and choose a response that aligns more with who you want to be? How you spend your time when no one is watching. Do you move towards something meaningful, something that builds your future, or do you default to what's easy, familiar, and immediately comfortable? Whether you act on something you've been thinking about, even in a small, imperfect way, or tell yourself you'll do it later, like you've told yourself so many times before. Whether you choose growth, even when it feels uncomfortable, uncertain, or inconvenient, or stay in a place that feels safe but no longer challenges you or moves you forward. None of these moments feel important on their own. They don't feel like defining moments. They're quiet, almost forgettable, easy to dismiss as part of a normal day. But together, they create direction. They form patterns. They build momentum over time. And right now, direction matters more than intensity. It's not about how big your actions are, it's about where they're leading you. That's what makes today so different, even if it doesn't feel different at first. The energy isn't pushing you forward, and it's not pulling you back. It's not forcing you into change, and it's not holding you in place. Instead, it's observing you. It's revealing how you naturally move when nothing is forcing you to move. When there's no external pressure, no urgent deadline, no situation demanding immediate action. Because anyone can take action when they're under pressure. Anyone can make changes when something becomes uncomfortable enough to demand it. Anyone can react when they have no other choice. But who are you when things are neutral? When nothing is urgent, nothing is collapsing, and nothing is demanding your attention? Who are you when you have space, real space, to either take a step forward or stay exactly where you are? That's what today is quietly revealing. Not through big events or dramatic shifts, but through awareness. Through those brief, almost unnoticeable moments where you catch yourself in the middle of something familiar. A second where you realize you're about to repeat a pattern you've already experienced too many times. Something that no longer serves you the way it once did. A thought that surfaces unexpectedly, reminding you that you've been delaying something you already know matters. Something you've been avoiding even though it keeps returning to your awareness. A quiet internal voice that says, "You've been here before," even if everything on the outside looks slightly different this time. That awareness doesn't stay long. It comes and goes quickly, often disappearing as fast as it appeared. But it's enough. Enough to show you something real. Enough to break the automatic cycle, even for a moment. Enough to give you a choice, even if it's a small one. Even if it doesn't feel like a life-changing decision in that moment. And that's where the true significance of today exists. Not in what happens around you, but in what you notice within yourself, and what you choose to do with that awareness once it appears. And that awareness is where everything begins, even if it feels small, even if it only lasts for a moment before your attention shifts again. Because once you see it, even briefly, even for a second, you can't completely unsee it. It stays somewhere in the background of your mind, quietly present, subtly influencing how you think and how you respond moving forward. You may try to move past it, distract yourself with something else, or convince yourself that it's not important right now, that you'll deal with it later when you have more time, more clarity, or more motivation. But something inside you recognizes it. Something deeper than logic, deeper than habit, understands that what you just noticed matters. And that recognition, as subtle as it may seem, is the real turning point, even if it doesn't feel like one in the moment. Because today isn't asking you to change everything at once. It's not demanding a complete transformation or a dramatic shift. It's asking you to notice where change is already needed, where adjustment has already been quietly waiting. It's asking you to become aware of the gap between what you already know and what you're actually doing. And that gap, no matter how small or how large it is where your direction is being decided. Not in the future, not in some big moment that hasn't arrived yet, but right here, in how you respond to that awareness when it shows up. Because every time you recognize that gap, you're standing at a choice point, even if it doesn't feel like one. A choice to move a little closer to alignment, or to stay where you are, repeating what feels familiar. And over time, those choices don't just add up, they define the path you end up on. You might also notice that things feel slightly more intentional today, even if nothing around you has visibly changed. Conversations might carry a little more weight, even if they're about ordinary topics. Certain words might stay with you longer than usual, replaying in your mind in a way that makes you think about them differently. Situations that used to feel neutral or routine might now feel like they're showing you something, like there's a layer beneath them that you didn't notice before. Not in a dramatic or overwhelming way, but in a quiet, almost subtle way that makes you pause for just a moment longer than you normally would. There's a slight shift in perception, a quiet clarity that begins to surface, not all at once, not as a complete understanding, but in pieces. Small realizations that come and go. Quick insights that appear when you're not expecting them. Brief moments where things make just a little more sense than they did before. And those moments don't demand action. They don't force you to do anything immediately, but they do invite awareness. They invite you to notice, to acknowledge, to recognize what's being shown to you. And awareness, even in its smallest form, changes everything. Because every time you become aware of something you were previously moving through unconsciously, you create a moment of choice. A real moment, even if it only lasts a few seconds. A moment where you can either continue the pattern you've been repeating or step slightly outside of it. And stepping outside of it doesn't mean completely changing everything all at once. It can be something small, something simple, something that feels almost insignificant. But that small shift matters because it breaks the automatic cycle. It interrupts the pattern. And once a pattern is interrupted, even briefly, it becomes easier to see it clearly the next time. And those moments, as small as they seem, are where real change actually begins. Not loudly, not dramatically, not in a way that immediately transforms everything, but quietly and consistently. One different choice, one slight adjustment, one moment of honesty where you stop avoiding what you already know and allow yourself to face it, even if just for a second. And that honesty, that willingness to see things as they are, instead of how you've been telling yourself they are, is what starts shifting everything internally. And once that starts, even in a small way, even if it only happens once, your direction begins to shift. Not instantly, not in a way that's immediately visible to you or to anyone else. You won't suddenly feel completely different, and your external world won't suddenly transform overnight. But something subtle begins to change. A new pattern starts forming. A new way of responding begins to take shape. And that shift, even though it's quiet, is steady. And that steady shift is what creates momentum over time. Because momentum doesn't come from one big decision, one powerful moment, or one dramatic action. It comes from small decisions made consistently, especially in moments where it would be easier not to make them. Especially in moments where no one is watching, where nothing is forcing you, where the only thing guiding you is your own awareness. And right now, you're in one of those moments. From this point forward, things won't stay as neutral as they feel right now. This quiet, almost invisible phase won't last forever. The stillness you feel, the space you have to observe and reflect, is temporary. Energy will begin to pick up. Situations will start responding more quickly. The time between action and result will begin to shorten. Opportunities, challenges, and decisions will start appearing with more clarity and more frequency. And when that happens, the space you have right now, the space to pause, to notice, to adjust, won't feel as available. Things will move faster. Responses will be required more quickly, and the patterns you've already set will begin to carry forward with more momentum. That's why today matters. Not because it's loud or dramatic, not because it forces anything or demands immediate action, but because it gives you something rare. It gives you the chance to choose your direction before things start moving faster. The chance to become aware before action becomes necessary. The chance to adjust, even slightly, before those adjustments become more difficult to make. It gives you space, a quiet, subtle space that most people overlook, but one that holds more influence than it seems. So don't underestimate a day like this. Don't assume nothing is happening just because everything looks the same on the outside. Pay attention to what you notice, even if it seems small. Pay attention to what repeats, what keeps coming back into your awareness without you trying to think about it. Pay attention to the thoughts that linger a little longer than usual. The feelings that don't fully go away. The moments where something inside you says, "This matters," even if you can't fully explain why. Those are the signals. Those are the moments that are trying to guide you, quietly, without forcing you. You don't need to rush. You don't need to have everything figured out. And you don't need to make perfect decisions or take perfect actions. But you do need to be honest with yourself. Honest about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and whether it's actually moving you in the direction you want to go or simply keeping you where you've always been. Because once things start moving, and they will, you won't be starting from zero. You won't be beginning from a neutral place. You'll be moving from whatever position you created today. Whether that position was built through awareness and small intentional choices, or through habit and repetition without thinking. And later, when everything begins to accelerate, when things start unfolding faster than expected, when decisions feel more important and outcomes show up more quickly, you'll look back at this moment and understand something with a clarity you don't fully have right now. It wasn't just another day. It wasn't just routine. It was the decision point you couldn't see at the time, but were living through with every small choice you made.